I'm interested in how the best warriors are playing. I want to see what their builds are. I want to check out these two guys who are all the way at the top. You see, both of them are using different arms specs. Yes, we will be going arms. Fury just really isn't represented in here at all. I checked the top 10. There is nobody being Fury at this point, although there was on day one. Let's figure out how we're going to use this assortment of abilities to get as much damage in on these fights as absolutely possible. We can see starting off with Chris's logs that he doesn't have Mortal Strike listed in his damage done. So he's actually using a build that has 5 points in Fury and doesn't have 0 points with 31 points being in arms. Interesting. I wonder, what does this mean his rotation looks like? And let's pay attention to the slam first. Why is it going whirlwind into slam? Well, whirlwind is his highest damage per rage ability, but why do we do slam second? It's because he gets a proc for a free instant cast slam. You're going to notice that there's a whole bunch of, it appears, randomly cast slams, and that's because you're going to randomly have the 30% proc activate for that rune. Now, what about the other abilities? Whirlwind's used every 10 seconds pretty religiously. You can see that basically all these whirlwinds are about 1 screen length away, which is 10 seconds. And then the extra globals are being filled with quick strikes. Are there any other things being done here? Yeah, of course. We have overpowers, which you might be wondering, well, when would I do overpowered? I'm going to lose some rage when I go to battle stance, so do I do that just immediately every time? And in general, yes, you do. You just switch immediately every time. As you can see right here, this is a log of dodges and overpowers. It won't look this clean in your UI because I edited the page just a little, but I wanted to show you the actions that occur in between a dodge and an overpower. You can see in this case, for the first overpower, there was no time to react. We did a dodge here, and then immediately an overpower came out. Now here at the 33-second mark, a dodge goes out, and then I imagine that we are already button mashing slam, so a slam goes out, and then a quick strike gets out before the overpower. I think that most likely what occurred here is that this slam was getting button mashed to be done, and so it starts getting cast the absolute second that you're able to really notice that this dodge even happened. And so this final quick strike, I think it just kind of accidentally went out prior to the overpower, or they were trying to burn off some rage before having to do the stance, but I think that that's not very easy to really do, to figure out what the best amount of rage to burn is. In general, you just dance immediately in overpower. Why would you dance immediately in overpower? Because overpower is a super high damage per rage ability. It instantly swings your main hand, which means that it does about 3 times the damage of quick strike. We can go back and look at that really fast so you can see it, but a quick strike here averages about a 250, whereas an overpower is nearly 3 times as high. So that's kind of what you're doing. You're going to be throwing away some rage, maybe missing a couple quick strikes, but you could miss 2 quick strikes and it would still be worth it. So yeah, instantly swap for overpowers. Now, what about this Bankai Master guy? What's he doing? We see that he has a 31 arms build because he has Mortal Strike in his damage done. Let's check what's his rotation look like. It's pretty similar to what Chris was doing, except in this case, we're not doing random slams. They're basically every 6 seconds, and this is because they have the precise timing rune. They're also going to be doing these Mortal Strikes every 6 seconds, and then the whirlwinds every 10. It's pretty easy to see. You can see the MSs at the top. Have your eyes there. Notice how they're all pretty much evenly spread out. Same thing with the whirlwinds and also with the slams. Then every once in a while, you know, you're going to get an opportunity to do an overpower. Let's see, does he take that opportunity? Absolutely immediately, like the last guy. And it looks like, for the most part, yeah, like here you get a dodge. You cast a slam right before you do the overpower. I think that probably this is just like a reaction time thing. And then down here, another pretty similar situation. We get a dodge, immediately overpowers. Here we get a dodge, immediately overpowers. I think it's pretty safe to say that, in general, you just immediately dance for the overpower. Sure, you might lose an absolutely ridiculous amount of rage, but in my opinion, as long as dancing isn't going to cause you to delay either a slam, a whirlwind, or a Mortal Strike, then I can't really imagine a situation where you wouldn't want to instantly switch for an overpower. Just my 2 cents though. Now let's go into what these actual builds they have are. So let's talk about Chris first. He has 5 points in Cruelty. He doesn't have a point in Mortal Strike. But what's the rest of this tree look like? Well, you start off with Improved Rend because we want to get Deep Wounds, of course. And then you're going to max Heroic Strike also because worst case scenario, you'd be taking points out of Tactical Mastery. And this wouldn't be that important. So let's fill this up. Great, now we're finally able to put points into Deep Wounds. Of course you're going to do Deep Wounds. And of course you're going to do Improved Overpower because it's in both of our rotations for the 2 different specs. So we definitely need that. Now you might be thinking, well, what's the decision here? Do I want to get 2-handed weapon spec or do I want to get Impale? 2-handed weapon spec is generally better. You could sim it. It's going to just depend. It doesn't have a big difference either way. Let's put the points into 2-handed weapon specialization. And then we'll see. Okay, so we got all 5 points in there now. All right, Sweeping Strikes, 5 points in Axe Specialization. I think that pretty much all of these points are just, of course, how you give them. What are you going to do? You need Improved Rend. Or Improved Heroic Strike here. You might as well put the 3rd point in it. You literally need to have 2, otherwise you can't put anything into the next tier of talents. You put 4 into Tax Mastery, just so that way you can get to the 3rd row. The 3rd row, it's no decision-making required. Obviously, you go to Overpowered and Deep Wounds. Here on the 4th tier, you have a decision. You could do 2-handed weapon spec or Impale. That's the only decision that you should really think you even have, but really just put into 2-handed weapon spec. Let's talk about the MS build. It's basically the same. You're going to have all the same reasoning getting you through this tree right here. It's just that instead of putting the points actually into Cruelty at the end, you'll now have 5 points to put into the Arms tree. So this is where your tree's at currently. What's going to enhance your DPS? Let's look at all these. This maybe, right? You know, if you crit, you'll do more damage, of course. Is there anything else here that's going to enhance your DPS? No, 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 no. None of those other ones. Okay, well, you still need to put in 2 more points. What do? Fill out Tact Mask, Anger Management. It could potentially help you get a little bit more rage. That's the I use Mortal Strike build. Now, you're probably wondering, what do the runes look like? And these guys got the same runes mostly. Flagellation in the chest. What do they got for the hands? You can either use Quick Strike or Endless Rage. It just depends. I'll put down Endless Rage for this one, and then Precise Timing or Blood Surge. I'll put down Precise Timing. You can use either of these, but I bet Blood Surge is a little better because you can get lucky. Okay, so if you're really going for a super high parse, I think Blood Surge along with a Quick Strike, this is probably a little better because you can get lucky, okay? But average case scenario, I bet most people have a lot more fun playing this. It'll create a super consistent rotation for you, and that's really enjoyable, at least in my experience. They also are both using Frenzied Assault, and then as far as the feat runes go, like, do whatever you want, man. It doesn't matter at all. Let's go back and check the runes here really quick. We'll put the other possibility, which would be Quick Strike with Blood Surge. They both have the same Flagellation chest rune, Frenzied Assault, and yet again, nobody cares about what you have on the feat rune. So these are the 2 builds that you can end up going with. Chris is using this build, and he has the rank 1 slot right now. Bankai Masta is using this build, and he has the rank 2 slot right now, but either of them really is going to be fine. Let's talk a little bit about gear and also some statistics involving these specs. This is the sim. You've probably used it before. We're going to be doing this with 1600 armor left on the boss because that's what the second to last boss's armor is after debuffs. The last boss is 2300, but we can't sim 2 armor values at the same time. Let's quickly see how much DPS we'd have on the Menagerie boss if you're playing perfectly and in amazing gear. 604 DPS. But why are we actually here? Because we want to determine what gear to use and not just memorize a list. No. Let's go over how you could think about this for yourself. You could actually generate stat weights, and that tells the sim to go see, as you gain a little bit or lose a little bit of these different stats, how does that increase or decrease your DPS? And then we can actually put that information into another application that'll let us generate what the optimal gear set for us is then. So let's see, this is going to be crunching some numbers really quick. We'll see that it's 0.8 for the strength and agi. It's about 0.35 for the attack power. then it's 10 for crit and 6 for hit. So let's go to 60 upgrades and really quickly set up a character. We'll name it A because that's easy. And then we'll add in some points. You'd have to do a custom. We'll put DPS config. What are the 5 things we need to have? Well, it would be these. So strength, agi, AP, crit, and hit. So let's put all these in. Strength, agi, AP, let's see, hit, and crit, attack power. Great. Now we'll put in the actual values for these. So 0.36, 9.5 is like 6.3, and then 0.8 and 0.8. And now what's cool is when you come up with gear this way, you really know what it is that you're finding. You're finding the gear that would be optimal for whatever it is the bot's doing, which is a lot more concrete of knowledge than knowing that you're using whatever gear some random YouTuber says is good for whatever their reasons are. Not to say that people aren't trying hard to give you the correct information, but why would you take my word for something when you can just prove it to yourself? And so now, looking at the sim like this, I say the gear planner, you'll notice that this looks super duper similar to what we had in the sim. And that would make sense. Of course it's going to have the same output, because if the gear that we put in the sim was supposedly the optimal gear set for those rotations being used, then we'd expect that this website would give us the same gear output. So let's say that you don't want to play the way I talked about in this video or the way that we simmed right here. What could you do? Well, you could change it. You could come into the sim and you could be like, you know what? Personally, just personally, I think that using slam every 6 seconds is annoying. I like having less buttons. So you can put on something like focus rage and take slam out of your rotation. Maybe you also don't like endless rage, you like quick strike, so you put quick strike into your rotation. You know, you go ahead, you turn it on, you didn't change too much, you resim it, you see, if I want to be lazy and swap out those two things about my rotation, I lose 20 DPS. So maybe you're like, I want to lose the 20 DPS. I don't care. I think this playstyle is more cool. I'm going to lose 3% damage. But even though my rotation might not be optimal, I don't want to use gear that's not optimal. So then what could you do? Well, maybe this different play style has different gear that's optimal. So you'd be able to regenerate your actual stat weights and then put it into 60 upgrades again. So that way you could see like, does this mean I should use different stuff? Like, for example, for this case that I just showed you right now, what changed? Remember before, strength and agi both had 0.79 as their weighting. Interesting. So actually by changing from slams to quick strikes, you decrease the value of agi by 0.4 and you increase the value of strength by about 0.4. So instead of strength and agi being equal, now you can see strength's about 10% better than agi. Kind of cool stuff. If you learn how to really use these tools and how to like really think about the classes and any of the decisions you make in the game, then you probably can't come up with the meta all on your own on paper. Like I can't either. No one's going to predict what a phase looks like. You don't have that much ability to analyze the information. But you can very easily get just a few percents off of what is optimal, and you can have a real understanding of it. And that will give you opportunities to make all sorts of little improvements in your gameplay, ones that you wouldn't normally think of. And if you do have an interesting idea, you don't even have to grief your raid to try it out. No. You can head right on over to Thousand Needles, because Blizzard has put a target dummy in Classic finally, which is absolutely fantastic. So you could come over here and try out any wacky ideas you have. Something neat about this is they have no armor. Look at how hard I'm hitting. I'm hitting right in the middle of my damage range. You know, I can't really prove it to you, but there is no armor on these things. And there's lots of stuff you can test out that actually could really crank your DPS, unlike a YouTube video. Look at this. You see how I can actually land a cleave from all the way over here? Pretty interesting stuff. And I can't land a thunderclap from here. And if I move to the left of the mob, I all of a sudden can't sink the cleave. But if I'm back on the right side, I can again. What about whirlwind? What do you think will increase your DPS more? Knowing situations where you could basically reach across the room and cleave something, knowing situations that are like, will the whirlwind miss here? Or memorizing things from YouTube videos. Usually, watching YouTube and memorizing stuff isn't going to help you nearly as much as playing the game. Watch this whirlwind again. Notice how it doesn't hit the thing on the right? If I had jumped like I did before, it would. These kinds of things will give you more hits than other people in a fight. That's the kind of stuff that really separates awesome players, but it just doesn't appear in like time-gated content. If you're looking for stuff about like how to play in phase 2, how to play in phase 3, blah blah blah, you're gonna miss some general stuff about your class. Looking at things like how the mechanics of auto attacks work. How does melee range get determined? Do all the character models have the same melee range? Can you use items to change your melee range? Stuff like that will help you out a lot, and it'll stay with you forever. Things that won't stay with you forever are one-button rotation macros, or what is the best way to spend exactly 40 talent points? Don't put all your focus on those tiny problems.